Hello, welcome to the latest video. This is another From the Forge video for the Hobbypocalypse edition. And today we are going to be building the Adepta Sororitas Exorcist. Now, as you can see, I have cheated slightly. I have pre-assembled the hull of the Exorcist. If you want to see how that all goes together, with the exception of this part at the front, which is slightly different, please do go back and have a look at my Immolator video. The first half of that video is basically building the bottom, the hull. It's identical, as I say, with the exception of this panel on the front. So I thought I would just save myself a bit of time there. So I'm going to put that to one side, because what we're going to be concentrating on is the interesting bit of the Exorcist, the missile sort of launcher, for want of a better phrase, organ on the top. And what we're going to start with is some just sort of panels in here. Nice and quick. We're just going to sort of leap straight into this. As I'll say with most of my videos, I will sort of deviate at times from the instructions. If I do so, there's usually a pretty good reason for doing them. So it's not always that I'm just too lazy to follow the instructions as they're written. And indeed, in the case of putting together the Exorcist here, the instructions would have you start on this before you complete the whole section. I'm not quite sure why. It doesn't seem to make any sense to me to sort of not finish one part before you start on the next. So what we're doing essentially at the moment is just getting the decoration on around this big launcher that sits on and around the turret. I say turret, I'm not entirely sure. It rotates, but certainly one of the larger self-propelled sort of missile launcher arrays in the Imperium. Certainly the most elaborate and ornate. So got those in place. We then have a second set of keys that goes in place over the first set. I really do like, I don't know, let me know what you think in the comments. I really like the fact that they've basically said this is an organ. The gunner is also an organist. She is playing the organ, and only when she is required to fire at something does she then stop playing the organ and start actually shooting. I think that's very, very 40k. I love it. It would probably irritate the hell out of my brother, but then we differ in that respect. He prefers the sort of the more accurate militaristic style. I tend to think let 40k be 40k and let it be weird. Let it be extreme and odd and full of all of those sorts of quirky notes that make it what it is. Without that, it would just be sort of a very generic sci-fi setting. And in my view, significantly the lesser for it. So front armoured plate on here. I'm going to so enjoy painting all of this detail. All I can say is it's a good job. The Exorcist is an expensive vehicle in terms of points, because if it wasn't, there is no way in heck I would be able to get it done within, or sort of get 250 points done within the month that I'm doing this, because I would imagine this will take me most of the month. At least I can sort of just chuck in a cheapish character to fill out the rest of the points that month, because I'm going to want to spend most of my efforts that month on doing this, because you can't have one of these in your army and not give it your absolute utmost. Well, I don't think you can anyway. So what we now have is some kind of, I'm assuming it's a bit of a sort of a shrine of some kind. Doesn't appear to have a particular way around. It appears to be identical front and back. I'm assuming these open doors are meant to go sort of at the front of the tank, or pointing towards the front of the tank. But as for where it sits, it seems to suggest putting it somewhere in there. However, before you get the glue out, the instructions also recommend you paint this first before putting it in there, because there is absolutely no way, once that's in, you're getting the back of that painted. And you want to paint those roses as well, don't you? Right, so that's the basic part of that assembly done. Now, for some reason, it suggests you go back and sort of fit the rest of the parts onto the hull. I'm not quite sure why you wouldn't have done it already. It does seem to me to be somewhat bizarre, but that is what it is. I would say the people that write the instructions know what they're doing, but I frequently diverge from what they've said you should do, so I clearly don't agree with that statement anyway. Right. Stop babbling, Nick. Okay. So organ pipes into place, and I'm comfortable that actually I just need to get some kind of silver down there when it comes to painting it, so I'm not going to worry too much about leaving this assembly off for now. So then we come to this part, which also seems to slot in there. So I'm going to run the glue up here, and then here, nicely in place, like that. I suspect there is probably a way that you could sort of glue all of that together and keep it separate if you wanted to. I'm not too worried. Sorry, I digress. Oh no, apparently I don't. However, it does suggest that you stick these two halves together first. So again, just with the glue, run it straight up the middle. Sounds like my battle tactics. In place like that. And then it what does it do? Goes on like that. I would suggest that probably the easier way of doing that would be to attach each wing separately and then provide some glue down that central line. At the end. I would think that would be an easier way of doing it, because that way you can make sure that those three sections drop into there, and then that plugs nice and securely to the back there, and then that those three sections drop into these three slots quite nicely and snugly. Yeah, I think that's definitely the way to do that one. Don't try and stick it together first, that's stupid. You then have a choice. You've got the choice of the big lumpy missiles or the lots of little ones. Now, I happen to like the lots of little ones. And for the games that I'm going to be playing, no one is going to care whether it's the lots of little ones are the ones I'm actually firing in the game, or whether the type of missile that I'm firing in the game is the big lumpy ones. And so rather than try and magnetize these into place, I'm just going to glue them on. Seriously, I can't think of a reason why anyone would object to you stating, sorry, I've stuck these on for simplicity's sake, and this is the type of missile that it's carrying. So long as you make it clear at the start of the game that that's the missiles that it's got, and that's what the only missiles that it's got that you're going to be firing, I can't see anyone having an issue with it. And if they do, they're probably not the sort of person you want to play again. Because they sound like a prat. So there we go. That's all done. Ooh, yes, we have some scrolls. I do love a good scroll. This one's even being borne aloft by a pair of cherubs. So the sort of the narrative, if you like, behind the Exorcist is that these are absolute relics, treasured relics of the Adepta Sororitas. Ancient beyond sort of belief. No one really truly understands how they work anymore, that sort of thing. You know, the usual 40k nonsense. Nonsense? Narrative, sorry. I knew it began with an N. Now, as such, because each one is such a relic, they've all got their own sort of special names and records of battle and blah. So we've got some cherubs bearing scrolls aloft over the door. Interestingly enough, the 2 doors and a rear hatch that serve 2 crew. Doesn't matter. It's perfectly normal 40k. Why would your 2 crew want less than 2 side hatches and a rear hatch in order to gain access to their tank? Anything less is just being stingy. Okay, so I'll then attach the front. This is the organist herself. In case you couldn't tell from the pose with the arms, and possibly the most epic helmet outside of the Emperor's Children you have ever seen in your life. How amazing is that? That is just truly outstanding work. I love it. I love it. And therefore, I also condemn to heresy anyone who doesn't use that helmet in this tank. Because why would you not use that? I mean, aside from the normal sort of, why would you not wear a helmet into battle? If you've got a helmet like that, you wear it. I'm not going to glue this in place, however, at this stage, because I suspect that might be quite tricky to paint if it's stuck in place. Ooh, hunter-killer missile. It will always miss. However, this one is pretty, and therefore you should always take it, because it looks cool. And we all know what the rule of cool is. You see how professional that was? Not only did I knock the camera, but I actually caught it as well. And I didn't swear. Very professional of me, I thought. So we will then drop that in place, same spot as I did on the Exorcist. So sort of having some kind of consistency on these relic vehicles in terms of where the hunter-killer missiles go. I'll put it in a very different spot on the Rhino, but that's because there's an actual part that is designed for it on that. So we then have these lovely sculpture things to go on, and these go on the front of the organ here. In case you hadn't picked up, I'm somewhat under the weather at the moment. I've got a bit of a cough and a sneeze. I'm waiting for a COVID test result to come back. But I thought I would get these done for you anyway, whilst I'm waiting. And it does also mean that if I'm doing these, then I'm not in the freezing cold garage doing painting, which would probably exacerbate any symptoms that I might have. Cherubs. I don't particularly want to make this any worse. It's not very pleasant anyway. I certainly don't want to make it more of the bad. It does, of course, mean that I am now desperately hoping that actually this test comes back negative and it's just man flu, because otherwise I'm going to be missing King in the North. Which is a tournament I'm due to go to on Friday, and I really don't want to miss that, because there's lots of people that I want to meet that are going. So yes, I'm somewhat hoping that it is just bog standard man flu, and that my wife can then just tell me to get over it. Now, what I have noticed is that if you are feeling particularly stingy with yourself, or the nature of the kits that Games Workshop sometimes provides you with, one thing that you might be missing, if you have the Combat Patrol box, is an Incenser Cherub for your Battle Sister squad. It's there in the full kit, but not in the Combat Patrol version. What you can do, therefore, or what you could do if you were so inclined, would be to not put that on here, and you have a ready-made Incenser Cherub. I probably should have stuck to just doing the one video this evening, but I figured I'd try and get them both done. I'm paying for it a bit now, I think, but never mind. We are almost there. I mean, again, obviously, this sort of stuff is quite detailed, sort of filigree. You could easily leave it off if you were so inclined. Personally, again, I would say, if you are building this kit, why would you leave the detail off? You buy this kit, or you include this kit in your army because of how much detail it's got. You don't then choose to sort of put it in your army without making the most of it. I know some people would say the Triumph of St. Catherine is probably your centrepiece model for a sister's army, but for me, it's absolutely this one. this little chap is supposed to hold on here. Which again, I just think is awesome. I mean, it's so 40k, isn't it? The idea that you've got sort of these little cherub sort of creatures flapping around. The tank, it sort of rumbles into battle with a church organ sort of playing in the background. It reminds me very much of one of my favourite films of all time, actually. It's a Michael Caine film called Eagle Has Landed. Essentially it's a dramatisation of a Alistair MacLean novel about an attempt to kidnap Churchill during the war. A German commando team sort of parachutes in and tries to snuffle Churchill as he's on his way to a meeting somewhere. I'm going to spoil it because it's a Michael Caine film when he was young, so if you've not seen it already, you should have done. As they're discovered, and this German commando team takes refuge in the church within the town centre, and as they're being assaulted by the ironically the American soldiers trying to sort of prevent this kidnapping from taking place, one of the German soldiers for some reason decides to put down his machine gun and start playing the organ. And it's sort of it's a very sort of emotive sequence, as the Americans, who have been getting absolute pasting up until now, get a different commander takes over and starts leading the assault properly. And all of a sudden the German commandos start to lose. See, sometimes you must think, what the hell am I talking about? But yeah, I heartily recommend it. Michael Caine, Where Eagle, The Eagle Has Landed. It's also got Robert Duvall and Anthony Quayle, I think. Various other famous faces in it. Along with a very young Jenny Agutter. Which is somewhat disturbing if you've seen her in Call the Midwife recently. Because she is anything but young these days. Right, so the final part then is this little sort of trumpet type array. What goes there? There we go. We have a finished Exorcist. Not the guy that tries to get rid of demons and possessed people. There we are. So awesome, it doesn't even fit on the camera. How cool is that? I cannot wait to get painting this. Curse you, Brap. Right, that's me done. Look after yourselves, and we'll see you in the next one.